The Chargers are back.
The Chargers are back, yeah.
The Chargers are back.
Welcome to Chargers Talk 4630. Say what's up to Stacy, the host. Always keeping it real though. Rocking with the Chargers since 78. From San Diego up to 5 Mount, LA State. Powder blues clean. Don't let the colors fool you. Jim Harbaugh running the show. Yeah, the coach is brutal. Back to back, double digit wins. Set the tone. Lost a few pieces, but we locked in. Fully loaded zone. Eyes on the future. Yeah, we speak it into heaven. Super Bowl is so far. 2027. I'm saying your team sidelines nervous. Yeah, they know what it be. Mike McDaniel in the offense scheming like demons, huh? Chris O'Leary in the building.
Defense! Defense!
Yeah, 3 about to tell us what this team really meant. Playoff run longer, yeah, we put them to sleep. If you want Chargers everything, this is the place to be. Chargers Talk 4630. Nobody's got it better than us. Hey, share and subscribe. Enjoy the show.
This episode of Chargers Talk 4630 is brought to you by Zeolife, the exclusive patented superfood changing the way people fuel their bodies. Now listen, if you're looking for a game-changing way to improve your health, Zeolife is the world's most nutrient-dense whole plant. We're talking over 50% plant protein, essential amino acids, fiber, and powerful antioxidants, all in one natural source. Just 1 teaspoon a day supports your gut, boosts your energy, and promotes healthier skin and hair. And the best part, people everywhere are giving it a 5-star review because it works. So if you're ready to feel the difference, head over to zevo.life and start your journey with their 30-day risk-free guarantee. And because you're a loyal listener of this podcast, you get an exclusive 30% discount. Just use my code ChargeTalk4630 at checkout. That's without the R. That's ChargeTalk4630. Take control of your health today with Zeolife. Your body will thank you. Hello and welcome to Chargers Talk 4630. I'm Stacy. And before I get started, I want to remind you before we jump into this to like, share, and subscribe to get our content. And if you like to listen at work or in your travels, you can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts, as we are on the majority of digital streams. You guys obviously know how I feel, and I don't need to keep going over it, but I've been very open on this podcast about how I felt at the beginning of free agency, right? When that official free agency period opened, I was excited. I was sitting back, licking my chops, anticipating, just waiting to see what moves we were going to make to send a message that we are ready to go on a deep run. We're ready to challenge the best teams in the AFC. And then that first week came and went, and we really didn't go after anybody that moved the needle. So I'm sitting there like, what is Joe Ortiz doing? What is he up to? Because this isn't a guy that just fell off the truck, right? This is someone who spent over 2 decades with the Baltimore Ravens organization, learning under one of the best to ever do it in Ozzie Newsome and Eric DeCosta, sitting in those draft rooms, working in scouting, working in the player development departments, being part of a system that consistently built teams that could compete for a title every single year. Teams that had depth, teams that had a plan, teams that knew how to stack compensatory picks and just give themselves more of a chance to hit in the draft. So I started thinking about it. I've been going back and looking at what the Ravens have done over the last 10 years, the philosophy they use to stay competitive year in and year out. And for the first time, instead of sitting here confused trying to figure it all out, I think I get it, because when you really look at how Ortiz approaches free agency, it actually shouldn't surprise us. This is who he is. The belief is simple. If a player is hitting free agency, there's usually a reason. Injuries, inconsistent production, or price tag that's just too high. So instead of just chasing big names, the goal is to avoid big mistakes. And let's be honest, the Chargers have been there before and made their share of mistakes in free agency. Remember back when they hired J.C. Jackson? They signed him to that deal, big money, big expectations, and it turned into a disaster. 7 games and they paid nearly $40 million for it. That's exactly what Joe Ortiz is trying to avoid. Because in his mind, once you start chasing needs in free agency, you're putting yourself in a position to overpay or make a huge mistake. J.C. Jackson played 7 games over a season and a half. It was one of the worst signings in team history. Fortunately, the Chargers paid Jackson $38.5 million for 7 games over 2 seasons. Now, I'm not in any front office. I'm just going off of history, patterns, and what we've seen. And when you look at Joe Ortiz and you look at the amount of former Ravens he's brought in since he's got here, guys he was familiar with, he helped evaluate, guys he clearly trusts, it tells you something. And I can't help but to feel like I finally understand the strategy. Everything is starting to make sense to me. So let me share with you what I think is really going on and why it all connects directly to what they do on draft day. This is one of those drafts where the decision you make at pick 22 could honestly shape the entire season. And I've been going back and forth on this because when you look at what the Chargers have done so far, they made some really good moves. Like, don't get me wrong, they brought back guys like Tier Tart, Khalil Mack. They brought back Deshaun Phillips, who was great on special teams, and those moves are important, right? Those are guys that help you win games. But, let's be real for a second. None of those transactions move the needle. And when you look around the division, that's where it starts to get a little uncomfortable. The Raiders, yeah, they still got a lot of holes, and they're probably still finishing last, but they did make some good moves. They added some guys who can actually change games, and you got Max Crosby back, right, depending on what happens with him. And they're at least trending more towards being a more competitive team. Maybe 2-3 more wins. The Chiefs, they're still the Chiefs. They're always going to be good at drafting. They did lose pieces in the secondary, but bringing in Kenneth Walker, a Super Bowl MVP running back, that changes their offense. That gives them something they haven't really had in the last couple of years, a true difference maker in their backfield. And Denver is stacked. And then you go out and you add Jalen Waddle. That's a move-the-needle player. That's the kind of move that shifts games. That stresses defenses. That changes how teams have to play you. So now you look at the Chargers, and it's like, okay, you got better, but did you get better enough? And that's where this draft comes in on April 23rd with pick 22. Only 5 picks. There's still money left over that they didn't spend. And now you're sitting here trying to figure out how to fix multiple issues with limited resources. And a lot of people are saying, just take the best player at 22. That's your answer. I don't think that's the answer. I think that's a mistake. I did a podcast after the Super Bowl highlighting the monster guard from Penn State. I believe his name is Olajuwon, who I think is the nastiest, meanest guard in the draft. But as I keep collecting more data, I reserve the right to change my mind. And I have. Because if you really look at this team, and I mean really look at it, the issue isn't weapons. You got Ladd McConkey. You got Trey Harris. You got KLS. You got Aronde Gaston. Your running back room is deep and explosive. Defense, when it's right, is championship level. But the one thing, the very one thing that continues to show up in big moments is that interior offensive line. That's the problem. Your tackles, locked in. Rashawn Slater, Joe Alt, elite. But inside, that pocket collapses way too fast, and we've seen it. Herbert taking hits, timing getting blown up, drive stalling out. Interior pressure is the quickest way to ruin an offense. And it's been happening to this team for years. Now, to be fair, they tried to address it. You bring in Tyler Biadasz. That's a big upgrade. And what also will help the line is the signing of fullback Alec Ingold and the signing of one of the best blocking tight ends in the game with Charlie Kotlar, who is 6'6", 265 pounds. These guys, in my opinion, is going to help this offensive line be better at pass blocks, run blocks, better at developing screen plays, which you barely saw under Greg Roman, right? And just will help create huge holes under Mike McDaniel's schemes. And these running backs that the Chargers have in the backfield are fast and explosive, and I'm predicting a big year from these guys. I'm not sold on Cole Strange being a starter. They still have another guard in Ben Cleveland, who they signed last year, also an ex-Raven, and I expect Cleveland and Strange to compete for playing time. And that helps. But let me ask you this. Do you trust this unit right now as it stands to go into Kansas City or Baltimore in January and win in the trenches? I don't. And that's the difference between a playoff team and a Super Bowl team. So now you get to pick 22, and yeah, you could take a top guard there. You could take that one guy and say that's the fix. All is good. But here's the issue. You only have 5 picks, and that's not enough. You don't just need one player. You need depth. You need insurance. You need multiple contributors. And this is where I think people are missing it. Pick 22 isn't just a pick. It's leverage. It's a huge opportunity because teams are going to want to move up. Quarterbacks, falling prospects, whatever it is. And if you trade down, now everything changes. Now, instead of one player, you might get a second-round pick. You might get an extra third-round pick. Now you've got options. Now, you still can go after a starting caliber guard because this class is deep at that position, and then turn around and grab a pass rusher or maybe a corner or just depth that you desperately need. Now you're building a roster, not just drafting a name. And this is why I keep getting back to it. Trading down doesn't just help. It solves the real problem. You still address the offensive line, but now you're also preparing for injuries. You're also developing a younger pass rusher behind a 35-year-old Khalil Mack. You're also adding depth to a roster that's trying to survive a full season and a playoff run, because that's what it's about. It's not about having the best start in 22. It's about being 53 deep. And the draft, if the draft was so easy to fix things, why is there always the same teams in the top 10 every year with the same high picks? There are first-rounders who are bust all the time. And you got some third-rounders who become stars. So if that's the reality, why would you bet everything on one player when you can give yourself multiple chances to hit? Now, I already know what some of you are thinking. What if there's a superstar at 22? What if there's a can't-miss guard sitting right there? And yeah, that's tempting. I get it. It feels safe. It feels like the obvious move to make. But here's the thing. That only works if that player is significantly better than what you can get later. And in this draft, that gap isn't that big. So now the question becomes this. What's more valuable? One player at 22 or a starting guard plus another impact player from an additional pick in the second or the third round? That's not just opinion, that's math. And when you have limited picks, value matters more than anything. Now let me finish with this. When I look at this team, I don't see a team that needs a savior at 22. I see a team that needs reinforcements. I see a team that's close but not complete. A team that made good moves this offseason but didn't make the moves that change anything. And now, this draft is the chance to make up for that. You still got money you didn't use. You only got 5 picks. You can't afford to miss, and you definitely can't afford to think small. Trading down isn't the flashy move, but it's the smartest move. It's the move that builds depth, protects Justin Herbert, and actually gives this team a real shot to compete in a loaded AFC West. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about winning the draft. It's about building a team that's still standing in February. That's my take. That's my personal opinion, and I know people are going to react. Truthfully, 99% of you guys that make comments, you keep it respectful, so I appreciate you for that. But there's always that 1% that comes in emotional, saying you don't know what you're talking about, and it'll never happen that way, and throwing all kind of insults. But for the most part, some people disagree, but respectfully, they explain their side and we move on. And that's cool, because from where I stand, the smartest move for the Chargers is to trade down, stack more picks, and fill the multiple holes on this roster. One pick at 22 just isn't enough. I know not everyone's going to agree with that, but that's what I believe gives this team the best chance to succeed. And at the end of the day, the decision isn't mine. It's just my opinion that I want to share with you, and you share yours with me. The decisions is going to be made in that war room by Joe Ortiz and Jim Harbaugh. And that's it. So what you think? What would you do? Are you still staying at 22 and taking the best player available? Or are you trading down and stacking picks? Let me know, and I'll catch up with you guys on the next one. Like, share, and subscribe, and bow tie.
Chargers talk.